Hey all, and welcome to But I'll Take a Pinot Grigio, a top chef pairing. We've got a brand new interview for you here. I'm Jeff, our resident hospitality and culinary expert. I'm here with my friend Sundi, of course, as always. Together, we're here with Jim Smith of the Hummingbird Way in Mobile, Alabama. We covered lots of things. We could have talked and talked for a while, I'm sure. And even with all the accolades and restaurants he's got going on, you probably know him like I do as a former cheftestant on our beloved Top Chef. So it's just a tasty extra treat thrown into our regular coverage. Thanks for listening as always, and hope you all enjoy. So it's very, very nice to see you, and I really appreciate you doing this with us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. So y'all are both from Georgia?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, both from Columbus. Yeah.
Yeah, Columbus.
And my dad was born in Bay Minette down there and was raised in Thomasville and Grove Hill area. So that area is very, very big to me, especially when I was growing up. So I'm glad to see there's so much cool stuff down there now. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot going on for sure.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years. So I want to get down and get to your place soon. I'm extra fired up about it now.
Yeah, we'd love to have you.
Jeff's going to take me on an eating tour of the South. He's like making a list every time something like comes up. He's like, oh, we got to go there too. Oh, we got to go there too. Because we are in a friend group. His wife and I are really good friends. And then like my wife and I, we like our friend group. So the list just gets longer and longer every time we watch an episode. So
we're doing a tour of the South in our kitchen currently for her and taking her through different stuff.
Your season was Charleston, yeah?
Charleston,
right? Well,
and briefly Louisville, but yes, mostly Charleston.
Yeah.
I just have a quick question. Sorry, Jeff, I'm jumping the line.
Please.
Because Charleston is like technically Carolinas. I mean, not technically, it obviously is. But the way that they've sort of differentiated the Charleston season with like the Carolinas, are you seeing like any differences in the way that it did? Because it kind of seems like it's splitting hairs a little bit to segregate Charleston into one season. So like what differences are you seeing so far?
Well, there are for sure some differences, but I think that there are more similarities than differences. And I think that probably somewhere in some challenge writer's room, they had a bunch of good leftover ideas from the Charleston season and decided to try to add them in. Also, at the same time, we for sure had a 24-hour whole hog cook, which looks very much like what's about to come on next week. So,
yeah.
And really, the only South Carolina we've seen at any point so far is from Last Chance Kitchen, yesterday's Last Chance Kitchen. And I know that they were kind of weird about like when it was in Canada, it really wasn't. They really didn't visit any other places other than the main city. And I kind of feel like that's the way that this season is shaping up as well. But maybe they just wanted to shoehorn in some South Carolina in a few places. But yeah, it's more similar than different for sure.
Maybe they should have just called it the Charlotte season with a quick jaunt to Asheville.
Yeah, Charlotte's a big enough city to, and it's fine. Yeah, if they want to cut over to Asheville one day, definitely. Like that's would have been a perfectly fine strategy. Or North Carolina would have been fine too. I don't really think
that's fine too. Yeah. When I saw the zip line and all that in the trailers, I was like, oh, well, that's Asheville, and then we saw that yesterday. I was like, all right, I'll get it later, maybe. We'll see. No, I thought it was gonna be like when we saw it in the trailer, and then ended up not.
So let's settle a quick bet for us, okay? Because I am fundamentally opposed to an activity, right? I feel like these poor chefs are just like working their fingers to the bone. They're just sweating. The last thing that these folks want to do is go out there into the 105-degree heat and do an activity. They're out there ziplining and whitewater rafting. Which would you have rather whitewater rafted, or would you have rather sat on the couch and drank wine and rested?
I probably would have preferred to rest, but I suspect that probably this was shot on a different day than the actual, like it may have been that they did the quickfire in the morning, they did activities, and then the elimination stuff was all the next day, or maybe even 2 days later. It could have been, it might not have been so worn out, but like, I'm with you though in that I probably would not have gone whitewater rafting just for, you don't want to break your arm and get sent home or fall off and be like waterlogged all day. But like a zip line, something that requires very little physical stress, like, or rock climbing, like they were like rock climbing. I don't know. Yes. It didn't look like they went up very high on those rocks. And you heard
no.
Like, well, we made it 3 or 4 feet. And so I think
4 feet.
They were probably looking for some shots and found some.
Well, it's the exertion. And then I was so worried about these poor folks in the very first episode when they were out there on the NASCAR track. Because
she was freaking out about
we understand how hot it gets. Like, I mean, and then like
Yeah.
multiply that with what they're cooking with, and then the asphalt coming up, and they were all super sunburned. I was just like, oh, I hope they gave them sunscreen. So because there's just so much physicality.
She's a warrior. Yeah. Also, yeah. All she heard was she's right about all this. Also,
That's right. That's right. I gotta go. Thank you very much.
There's definitely a lot more running than people might realize. That it's just sort of like watching, because you're always running around the kitchen. You're running back and forth. You're running in places you don't know. So it is there's some danger there. Like if you're running around the corner in a kitchen that you've never seen before. But yeah, it is a physically stressful environment. And there's a lot of, like any sort of reality TV show, there's a whole lot of hurry up and wait. So they may drag you out of bed at 6:00 to drive you across town, and where you have to sort of wait in a car for 7 hours before you do anything. And that kind of stuff will really, really wear you out if you're not trying to figure out how to get sleep, and or if you're not stressed out too much about what you're doing. And so there's a whole lot of that in Top Chef that you just don't see.
So
it's super fun.
Do you perceive that this is like a good representation of who you are as a chef? Like what you see in the competition, like what we see, I should say, what we see on the screen, are we seeing this person's identity as a chef? Like for real?
Yeah, yes and no. And you've heard Gail say it a couple times this season. I think it's particularly evident in chefs like Nana, where you may be super talented, may really know what's going on, but, can you make a dish in 15 minutes? That's a very different skill set than being an excellent restaurateur and a chef that really knows how to work a line, or someone who's a good recipe writer. And so, yes and no. But at the same time, you should always be striving to put yourself on the plate, because the producers and the people at Top Chef and the judges, they're looking for your dish to tell a story about yourself. And that's really what they're looking for. And when you come to these dishes, or, what you learn from whatever field trip you go on is incredibly important to what's on the plate, even though it's uniquely yours. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for it to be uniquely yours, but at the same time to embrace whatever farm you're visiting or whatever field trip you're going on.
Yeah, we've talked a ton about the story on a plate, putting yourself on a plate.
Oh, yeah. Let me add this too, and sort of,
Please.
Top Chef is not like other reality shows where there is a little bit of Franken editing in Top Chef, but it's very minimal. And I do remember one of my first days in the Top Chef kitchen, Casey Thompson, who's one of those early Top Chef contestants.
Oh, yeah.
She came over to me. She came over and she said, look, she covered up her microphone. And she's like always like, if you're going to the bathroom, cover up your microphone, because, if you're talking smack about the judges in the bathroom to someone who you think is, is not listening, there is always somebody listening on the other end.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, she was like, don't roll your eyes too much, just because you never know when they might take that clip of you rolling your eyes and insert it somewhere else. Now, I will say that Top Chef is, maybe in the early days, they were much more into that type of editing than they are these days. These days, they're really looking to elevate the chefs that they pick as some of the best chefs around. So they're not really looking to like find a villain for the show. Whereas most, even Hell's Kitchen or some of those other kind of shows, they're looking to make you look bad, where Top Chef is really not doing that.
Yeah, I'm trying to get. She's used to so many of the Bravo shows where it is just backstabbing and starting drama and all this. And I'm like, there is a show where people get along and work together sometimes. And so this week we got to see some of that. I'm like, see, this is fun. It's not just like the other people. So I was wondering, like, when, I first got to know you with all your, accolades and everything, but it was on the show that I first got introduced to you. But I was wondering, I don't know much about you before then, really. So how old were you when you got started? Like, how did you get started? Because I was pretty young when I did. So I'm always interested in what it was that you saw as a young person that made you, go down this very fruitful and always enriching lifestyle of being a chef.
Yeah, my very first job, I was a roller skating car hop at a Sonic, and I also worked in the kitchen for that. So I do have some fast food experience. And that started when I was 15 years old. When I was in high school and college, I was a debate person, a very intense debate person, sort of like, always on the search for, are we going to make it to the NFL in high school? Are we going to the NDT in college? And so I was really heavily involved in this world of academia. And I was a high school debate coach, assistant debate coach for about 4 years as well.
Oh, wow.
And so while I was doing that, like I had always worked in restaurants while going to college and while being sort of heavily involved in this debate community. And what I realized is that when I after my time in fast food, I just was like, I'm just going to walk into the nicest restaurant that I know about that's in my town, and just kind of learn about what's going on there. And I do remember, being like 19 years old and thinking, boy, it's so strange that there's alcohol in this place. And, just sort of like the things that are very different between a fast food restaurant and a nice restaurant. But so I worked at this place. I worked for a really famous chef in Birmingham, Alabama. His name is Frank Stitt. And I started off as a busboy, and I was a server and a wine steward and a bartender. And their training regimen for the front of the house people is so intense. You have to spend a ton of time in the kitchen. So, like, I learned how to make a creme brulee from his pastry chef, Miss Dahl. And so I just discovered that there was this whole world of food and wine and service and what really makes hospitality. And I also discovered there was this whole area of academia and study that I knew nothing about, as someone who has been like in deep with sort of like real sort of academia for more like international relations and politics and interpersonal relationships and all of that sort of the things that make intercollegiate and high school debate such an important thing. I was like, wow, there's this whole world of study that I knew nothing about. And I just really fell in love with it from there.
Yeah, I like that you were in kind of like competitive academia because, as much there is something about like the hustle and bustle of a kitchen. And especially when you're young, like as much as you work with people, you're trying to outshine people eventually when you're trying to come up with your own thing. When was that when you were was it just Highlands where you worked under him or?
I worked at Bottega, which is the Italian version. And actually, Bottega is a finalist for the Best Hospitality at the James Beard Awards this year for the National Best Hospitality. And Highlands and Frank won Most Outstanding Chef in the country at the James Beard Foundation. I mean, maybe 6 or 7 years ago at this point, maybe a little bit longer than that. But yeah, that was in the sort of early 2000s. I was working there.
Yeah.
I worked at Bottega for about 4.5 years. I also worked for Chris Hastings at the Hot and Hot Fish Club.
Awesome.
It's another really famous Southern restaurant.
Yeah.
That whole Birmingham dining scene is really intense. But I'll tell you a really cool story about Frank is that I was doing this event, a James Beard Scholarship Foundation event. And what's her name? Nancy Silverton. Okay. I'm plating. Nancy Silverton and I are in a group together. We're plating next to each other. So, and I have idolized her for my entire career. And little did I know, like we're talking to each other, and she says, where are you from? I said, oh, I'm from Alabama. And she starts telling me, she says, oh, you may know this chef from Alabama that in the late 60s, I worked the line at San Francisco at Chez Panisse. And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh yeah, Frank Stitt. So in a world where sort of like one of the most famous Southern chefs ever was working a line with Nancy Silverton in 1968 in San Francisco. I mean, those are the kind of stories that sort of like really, there's a real connection and a real kind of a mentorship that happens in the culinary world. And so it's really cool to see, like, I kind of suspect that, the things that they learned at Chez Panisse appeared or are the same kind of things that I learned from Frank. And it was just really good to see kind of a cool full circle moment when such an amazing chef who I didn't even know that they worked together. It's just sort of like willing to sort of step up and kind of like reminisce about 1968 in San Francisco making pizzas.
That's incredible. That's awesome. I mean, that's when I first started going over there. I was in Oxford, Mississippi, like in the mid-aughts. And that's when I first started going, like, that's when I found out like who he was and, got the Highlands book, like I think 3 different people gave it to me one year, like the second year was out or something. I love the origin stories, when you got to do your season, when you got to do Charleston, like, were they doing, you get to bring a few things, right? Like secret ingredients along with you. What were the rules for that? What all did you get to bring with you?
Yeah, well, I would always love to be invited back.
Yes,
and
of
there are
course.
some things that I probably could not say, but there are some things that I hear other people say. Like, I feel it's safe if Padma said it before. It's probably okay for me to say it.
Great rule. Yeah.
I think they let it was something like maybe 12, 15 items that you could bring. And what's really kind of funny is that lots of the chefs brought a lot of the same stuff. Like you're thinking about how to build umami. Like almost half of so many of the people had instant dashi in their kit. Which is, that handashi is very easy way to add a bunch of flavor. Lots of people brought black garlic. I'm kind of over the black garlic trend, but at that time I did bring black garlic. But other than that, I brought a lot of very specific things. Like I brought Poyer's cane syrup, which is a very sort of thick, intense Louisiana cane syrup. It's, they're made in giant kettles on the Mississippi River. I bought some miel, some honey vinegar, which is sort of like a $70 bottle of vinegar. That honey vinegar is another way to like really ramp up big flavors in dishes. But then I also brought things like I went to the local grist mill and brought several bags of grits and cornmeal, and then some kind of other dried, like southern staples. Those are the things I remember mostly, though.
Yeah. What time of year did y'all start? Were you also in the summer?
Also in the summer.
Do you think that's fun that they usually start in summer? And I know they switched it up a little bit sometimes, but
yeah, sometimes they film a little bit later, but usually the height of summer is the best time for the local produce. I mean, as much as I love collard greens and turnips, there gets to be like this time of year. I'm like, okay, I'm so glad the collard season's almost over. I'm ready to move on to tomatoes, and we're already getting sort of a bevy of spring onions and all the various green garlic and all the stuff indicates that the beginning of springtime ingredients are here. That gets me the most excited, but definitely summertime is a great time to film, just to give you better access. I will tell you something too, is if anybody's thinking about going on Top Chef who's listening to this, and I say this on several podcasts, is I knew that we were filming in Charleston, like I got you're going to be on the show like a month, maybe 2 months out. I made sure to go to the Whole Foods in Charleston, like from Alabama. I basically location scouted in Charleston. And so like I spent a long time just like talking to the people at the butcher's counter, like what kind of cool stuff do you have back there that's not on display? And and go up and down the aisles of the Whole Foods just to sort of make sure I could know where stuff was. I also went to places where I thought, there might be some filming or some ideas. Just to get some kind of touristy things about the food scene in Charleston, and it definitely helped. And I think it's a good strategy. It's a cool strategy. I think something that every chef should do it.
Yeah, because when we started, like, I'm not as familiar with it as that, but the Whole Food scene, how disorienting it must be, because you go to the same market, you go to the same grocery store, you take the same route, and it must have been so disorienting. And so that is so smart.
I hit the Whole Foods in Louisville right after the crew left one time. I mean, we got there like as whatever that season's BMW X5 that they said a million times was. We're like, what's going on? Like, it's like the Top Chef people just left. Like, it was like, oh man, you wouldn't like, it was like a rush, like right after the tour bus pulls up to the restaurant and leaves, you're like, oh God, it was like Tasmanian devil. It just kind of blended through a little.
One of the rules that they never ever say on the show, but it's definitely a rule, is once something has been wrung at Whole Foods, it cannot be unwrung. So if you're waiting at the end of the line and you're hoping that your fellow chef testants are going to take care of how much money you're spending, once their stuff is through the ringer, it cannot come off. And so it can. That's how definitely one of the ways that they elevate the suspense and the tension there at the checkout line.
She had a lot of questions about the Whole Foods stuff. I think that was the most relatable part.
I commented last night about the plating of it all and about just how brutal it gets. And that would be too, because you're having to like do the math in your brain. Like, come on.
When you first came on, is that when you were, and tell me if the title's wrong, but like it was just executive chef of the state of Alabama, and the kind of situation you were talking about before, like and when that came across my screen for the first time, it was like, well, what does that mean? It's just one of those nooks of the business you don't consider, and then you see it and you want to know everything about it immediately.
Yeah, not every state has a state executive chef, but most of them do. I know that Georgia does. In fact, this woman named Holly Shute, who's I think still maybe be the head of Grow Georgia, was the state executive chef for a long time. And basically what I did was I did the daily cooking for the governor and first lady, for 2 governors. And then also anytime there was any sort of event, or maybe there are dignitaries in town, or if they wanted to have a 5-course menu for 20 people, or a buffet for 300, it's me. And there was no Alabama. Some states are awesome. Like Arkansas has the Clintons made a giant hall there, and so they have like 10 chefs who work for them all the time. Alabama's different. It was just me and the butler who she's been there for 40 years.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that's
so
awesome.
it really is a lot like a Top Chef's challenge in a lot of ways, in that it was just really me. So five courses for 20, buffet for 300. The governor wants to have chicken salad for lunch today. All that kind of stuff was all me. So.
Yeah, that's great preparation. Yeah, what a job to get ready for a competition show rather than just like, yeah, we're doing 150 covers a night. Like, all right, you do that.
So does the context of like the events happening change like the way you cook? Like, I mean, for the state of Alabama, there's a varying kind of like vibe to it, to put it that way. So like, depending on who's coming or what sort of event you're doing, does it really sort of change the way you decide about what to serve or how to serve it?
Yeah, those things you always have to be thinking about. I will say that a big part of my job was basically being an ambassador for all things Alabama food.
Yeah.
And also really supporting the local farmers markets and the farms. And so I would always start with, like most smart chefs do anyway, but for me, instead of just being local around one city, it was kind of statewide. And so I could pick, maybe I wanted to pick peaches from Chilton County, and maybe I wanted to go to Montgomery to get the field peas, and we would serve seafood from Alabama. We have a small coastline. And so that's kind of the starting point for all of it. But yes, like if I'm serving a buffet for 100 people, I have to know what I can execute by myself. And so, are we going to have braised pork cheeks? Whereas, in a smaller event, you can do more kind of modern cuisine or sort of things that can be a little bit like cleaner. But yes, also, I will say too that before I started, I heard this story about how Alabama did not have a state chef before I was hired, but the previous administrations had catered every single thing. And I would hear these stories that just sounded like so ridiculous. Like, if you're having Korean dignitaries come to Alabama, why are you going to try to feed them mediocre Korean food? Like, they don't want that. They want biscuits and gravy. And so I would hear these stories that just made no sense. Like, these people do not want to have sort of like the Montgomery version, of Asian food
every
at that
time.
That's just a bad idea to me. And so there was definitely some much smarter things to serve are the foods that are related to the state in a way that makes much more sense.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Like, why would you do a version of it, the thing they know really well, when you've got all of the good stuff you have right there? I've listened to your show also, where you're the expert, and you were as tickled as me and Sundi too, when Greg Collier's wheeling out a big tray of Southern sides. I mean, you can't light up anymore, and you sounded excited as we were. Like, what are your favorite, speaking of getting to those things you want to show off, like, and maybe being this time of year, what are some things you'd want to show off? Maybe a peek of what's to come on your menu too.
Yeah, well, we definitely do a peach and tomato salad, which is one of those things that has a short lifespan on our menu, but people come to the restaurant just to have our peach and tomato salad.
Yes.
And that's a cool combination. We do make it a little bit differently in that we make a sherry vinaigrette, but we do add some fish sauce into that mix. And so it's really just peaches, tomatoes, cucumbers, lots of herbs, some spring onions, and that sort of a very umami ramped up sherry vinaigrette. We do use good sherry vinegar too. I think is as much as you see balsamic and white vinegars in the grocery store, I don't know how the best vinegar in the world has never made it to grocery stores in America.
Right.
This is pretty much just held back for restaurants. But yeah, a really great sherry vinaigrette. But yeah, I mean, just summertime is so great. Like 2 weeks ago, we served braised duck on the menu, and we're sort of like charring all of those the spring onions and some fennel and the green garlic, and we're charring them hard with some really pretty locally grown mushrooms, and we serve that with duck, and we serve the whole thing over what is a hoe cake. I usually don't call them that on our menus, but like a good cornbread based pancake with a little bit of jalapeno. But as soon as corn comes in, whether it's more of a mock shoe style or whether it's a cream corn or, we do corn dessert. I know corn dessert is kind of like cheesy. Everybody does them these days, but there's a lot of things that, really just embracing the summertime produce that's all about to hit is super exciting.
All stuff I've had from like those chefs you spoke of, like Chris Hastings and Frank Stitt. I mean, you talk about some of the best tomato salads and duck dishes both I've ever had. Like those are those guys through and through. Yeah. Other than, so with all the food stuff aside for just a second, there's so much going on. Sundi's getting used to the chaos of the kitchen in here. And we know, it can notoriously be a wild place to work, the kitchen. What are some things you like to do to keep a calm, with your own staff and for your own self? And yes, I'm looking for tips also.
I've worked for some chefs who are plate throwers, but I would like to say just very clearly that like the world of the Noma chefs and sort of the horror stories of the, people being pinned against the walls or, there's no place in our industry. I don't care like what kind of level of chef you're trying to be, if you're trying to be the best restaurant in the world, if you've, reinvented fermentation for the rest of us, it doesn't really matter. You can't treat your staff like crap. The other thing too is this world of stages. Now, as someone who owns a restaurant and has been in this industry for a long time, I would love to go stage, and it would be very different for me to sort of be like, okay, I want to show up at Jean Georges for a week and sort of monitor things. So it's sort of like a continuing education thing where I'm not getting paid. But the problem is that all of these young kids who are just out of culinary school, they go to these places and they don't get paid. And so these people are, like the Noma bank accounts had something stupid like $20 million in the bank. Well, like how did they get that? They got that by exploiting cheap labor, by promising kids that they can put this on their resume, which is just a gross way to, I mean, it is absolutely the exploitation of labor for personal benefit while beating them up and yelling at them at the same time as you're, whatever, making money hand over fist because you get a bunch of free labor. So, that kind of stuff should not exist in our business. And for me, I think working for Frank is maybe the best example of that. Is that you could see like he never raised his voice. I never saw him yell at anybody. I try to lead by example, like the same way that I learned from Frank is that if you want your people, the people who work for you, to emulate your style and you want to encourage them to be the best they can be for themselves, for the restaurant, as a representative of you. You don't want to take advantage of them and you don't want to degrade them. And so, like we do encourage things like music and openness in the kitchen. And I will never yell at anybody ever. And, but it's clear, like, I think that I did not want to disappoint Frank when I worked there, and that encouraged me to be better in the kitchen, better at my job. And so that's really where I kind of start. I want to lead by example. I want to never get stressed. At the end of the day, it is art and it's passion and it's so important to me and it's hospitality. But at the end of the day, it's about, it's about hospitality and treating people with respect. And you want people to come into your restaurant and feel like they are just embraced with the food, the service, the sense of the atmosphere, like all of those things that come together. And you could never, in my mind, that can never be a really true and honest reflection of the restaurant if in the back of the house, people are yelling and screaming and throwing plates and you're degrading people and, or you're, sexually assaulting the front of the house staff. Like all of those things, they have no place in any sort of restaurant, in my opinion, because I want the back of the house to feel as warming and as inviting as the front does. And I think that shows up in the end results, in the food, in the quality of the service, in everything that we do every day.
That's awesome to hear and well said. Thank you. That's fantastic. Yeah. I'm always
chefs be getting a bad rap sometimes.
No, I consider myself lucky to have made it out a few of them with a somewhat normal, head on. So yeah, it was a little more, luckily a lot of that's in our past. I know we're getting close to wrapping up.
Well, I was just going to say, I was going to put you on the spot a little bit. So Jeff and I did this little bit at the end of our podcast. You tell it, Jeff. Seated,
we got seated, weeded,
and
then defeated. And defeated's kind of, maybe they could have been out 2 weeks ago, and the other two, I think you could probably assess
who are you
what that
putting
is.
In the top is what we're calling seated. Who are you putting sort of like in the mid right now? And who are you putting in the, watch out, your days are numbered?
I really enjoy Anthony. I think he's a pleasure to watch. I think he has got to be right up there at the top. I think it's good that he had a little bit of a hiccup early on in the season. I think it may have kind of, or 2 episodes ago, whenever that was, kind of got him right on the path. I think that he is the type of person who you would stand next to in the kitchen and just sort of be happy with their general attitude and sort of know that they're executing what they're supposed to on a high level. He's really high up on the list for me. I will tell you that the couple, Jennifer and I'm sorry,
Justin.
Justin,
thank you.
Yeah.
I know it's going to take me the whole season to learn everybody's names, but Jennifer and Justin, I want to see a little bit more attitude from them. They're just a little bit. They just don't seem to. I mean, I know that they care, but I want to see them care, you know. And I think that at the end of this last episode, like her, like choosing to stay. I mean, for me, that would never be a choice. Like, I would have to be like medically evacuated, like on Survivor. Like, I would have like, you know, like they would have to be dragging me away from the set to, you know, like if I was sick or injured or whatever, like they would have to be dragging me away. And so I like them, but I think that they haven't really shown out. I don't think they have shown what they can do, and I think they're kind of an, what do you call that? What's your tier? I think
they're seeded. They're weeded. They're in a little bit of trouble. Yeah.
The damn twins, like it's terrible that they are not putting their names on the chyron every time. Like, what are you doing to me? I have to put just twin 1 and twin 2 in my notes because I don't even know who I like or not because I can't tell which is which.
Yeah, and I'm with you for the most part. Ours are pretty similar. Anthony's been in the top, like for us the whole time.
We love him.
Yeah, I want some
sleeper.
Ooh, yeah,
absolutely.
And poor old Rhoda, she's been in my top like every single time, and there was just a real upset this week. I was like, "Yike!"
There was, yeah.
I think Rhoda has a real good chance of making it really deep in Last Chance Kitchen.
Yeah,
plays in the cool Last Chance Kitchen that y'all may not know, and I've heard both Padma and Brother talk about this before too, so it won't get me in trouble with the magical elves. But most of Last Chance Kitchen is filmed in 1 day or maybe 2 days, and so
that's right.
Those early chefs who have been eliminated, you know, they've all been living in the Losers Hotel for maybe like 2 or 3 weeks before they even get back onto the show. So they've had a lot of time to kind of stew in what got them kicked off the show. And the Losers Hotel tends to be more fun because you can hang out and you go to the bar and stuff.
Well, I was gonna say, can they hang out together? That was gonna be my question. Are they just sitting in your room by yourself, but they can hang out?
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
All of the restrictions ease up for sure.
But
you know, in Charleston was one of the last seasons. With the pandemic is what changed it. But those seasons where it was a little bit more like a reality show because all of us lived on a house together on this island beach property. It's one of those huge houses with like 15 bedrooms that that they rent out for like a beach property, but they don't do that anymore. They still, at the end of the day, they all go back to their hotel rooms. But, you know, there was a time when like 4 of us were rooming into in a room together, or like there was a bed in the hallway next to like where the PAs were doing stuff. So like while people are like charging microphones, you know, other chefs are trying to sleep. And so it did make it real difficult. I do remember too that, you know, because of that, we like the living room scenes were much less forced. Like at Top Chef now, they looks like they bring them to like a suite in the hotel, and they try to get some fake stuff in the morning, like, oh yeah, what's going to be today? But when you're all living in the same house, like the living room was actually the living room for the house, and so like that was the place where, you know, like on a day off, you know, maybe like on one day off they brought us it was like movie day, and we got like Uncle Buck, which was great, but then also the I can't believe I'm not going to remember the name. We were all bawling, like, why are you going to give us the saddest movie in all time? What's the what's the movie? I'm a seagull, you're a seagull. What's that one? The
Notebook.
Notebook, yeah.
You know, like you're going to give a bunch of people on a reality show.
That's a real choice.
That's a very Carolina coded movie, though. Too. That's really Charleston coded right there, too.
If you're missing somebody back home, though, that's not the movie to watch at that time. No,
they knew what they were doing.
Like we're all like bawling our eyes out. Like, well, I guess we're going to watch it because they take away your phones, or you have no access to TVs. Like they're staying in hotel rooms that probably have the TVs removed altogether.
It's brutal.
And so it's hard to know. And so like, oh yeah, we'll watch whatever, you know, like if you're going to have a movie day. But I do think that the newer versions of the show kind of miss that that kind of actual reality show kind of part of it where everyone's living in a big house and they're bringing us food. Yeah, like we would have to cook for ourselves too. Like they're bringing stuff. You can request stuff to go in their refrigerator so you can like make stuff if you're done early for the day or
Damn, y'all were never off the clock, were you?
No, like there's no craft services in the house.
Right.
It was sort of like, okay, what do you want from the grocery store this week? And you give them a list, and hope they get it.
Just some bologna, please. At least something. Yeah. So I'm checking out, you've got the books back there. We have a little mini episode every week where we do book recommendations. We've pretty much stuck to the Carolinas so far with a few little detours.
I recommend trashy TV. He recommends books. I recommend trashy TV. So,
well, look, we pull from what we know, right? That's
right.
exactly what we're doing here. For someone, we don't have to stick to Carolinas in here, but are there some big books, you think in your background, something you latched onto pretty early and maybe something newer and more, specific that you've come to know the last couple of years, possibly?
I will tell you not exactly a cookbook, but one of the books I'm reading right now is War and Wine, which is a really great book about what the French did during World War II to keep wine out of the hands of the Nazis.
Okay.
It's really an entertaining read.
That is right in line with my recommendation this week. I was going to recommend The New Look because Sherry mentioned something about Coco Chanel, who was
Oh, right.
And so I was gonna recommend our folks watch that. So that's very fun. That's like a nice little connect for your book and my recommend. Like
another actual cookbook that I'm reading that's actually new it's called, I want to say it's The South Meets East. I may be getting that wrong, but I think it's The South Meets East, which is It's a book written by a guy who has a restaurant on the Bankhead Highway in Atlanta, which is where like lots of the maybe his restaurant's not on the Bankhead Highway, but I want to say that he worked for Eric Repair, so he has a sort of like good New York French experience, but he's also adding Chinese and Southern influences into his food right now, which is really a cool place to start. My wife is from China, and so we do incorporate a lot of those kind of flavors into our menu at the Hummingbird Way as well. And one last recommendation is,
please.
I'm a Survivor super fan, and any people who are watching Survivor season 50, you're missing out on one of the best seasons of reality television in a long time. It's excellent.
And that's y'all's list of recommendations this week, sir.
That's like your podcast network's base, right? Like they do. It all came from a Survivor thing, right? Yeah, I didn't know about it till I got into your show. That I was like, there is so much. I thought 15 years ago I couldn't get into Survivor because there was already so much lore with it. Now I can't even. I mean, that's like trying to get into Tolkien books right now or something. Yeah. I don't know.
There's a lot of episodes.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Seasons of Survivor.
Oof. Well, Top Chef is halfway there. They're getting there.
As one of the Top Chef is definitely one of those early reality show spots, Survivor, the Real World you may count as before Survivor, but the Real World, Survivor, those are definitely the like that first writer's strike really opened the door to everything that is Top Chef and is Survivor, and it's really I enjoyed all that stuff. The challenge, like the competition reality.
Oh yeah,
Padma's show is great. I think Padma's show is awesome. Like I'm so glad to see that she's doing well. And I mentioned this on the podcast, but like last week's episode, during the first commercial break on live TV, CBS is paying for spots for Padma's show. They're calling it the best culinary competition on TV during like maybe the first commercial on the first commercial break on Bravo. So CBS
shots fired
is paying BC to advertise Padma's show.
Yeah, that Paramount money doesn't hurt at all. No,
we watched the episode and talked about it a little bit, kind of as a way, not really comparing, but just kind of saying, oh, this is what's happening there, and this is what's happening there. And people
not
loved
to
it.
compare, but we ended up comparing. Yeah.
Well, we absolutely did, of course. But people loved it. That was one of like the most downloaded episodes that we've had. So people are interested in what she's doing and like what she's got happening.
And there's such a focus on the food and what they're doing, whereas there isn't the activities as much or something like that, like she's talking about.
And they give them a lot of time. That's the other thing too. We haven't. It seems like every challenge is an hour, which gives these chefs time to really make something.
Yeah,
Like,
my closest
like an
one
hour.
for
Yeah.
me. Did you ever see The
Right.
Final Table on Netflix?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That was one of my favorites, and it was so under the radar, and everybody's like, "Well, there's nothing to it. They're just making good-looking food." And I was like, "Right, that's all I want to see. That's the only thing." But that's me.
Jeff and
Sorry.
I's tastes diverge in some ways because I mean, I
Yeah.
enjoy a cat fight. I enjoy a backstab. But, I'm also enjoying Top Chef in a real way. It's very fun to kind of change lanes a little bit because we also talk about Vanderpump Rules. And so on the on the days that we
Yep.
talk about Vanderpump Rules first, and then we also talk about Top Chef, it's a real like gear shift. And then I also do a show, Ladies of London, with my good friend. And so it's like we're just shifting gears all over the place.
Cool. I know that I heard for like when in the early seasons of the Vanderpump Rules show, I heard that the restaurant was actually really good. I've been hearing that the restaurant is not so good anymore.
That's what the word on the block is. I think so. I think someone said that the restaurant now is just sort of like a set now for the
It's
show.
a production house.
But
yeah.
Lisa Vanderpump has kind of moved on to do other things, and she's kind of like, oh yeah, I forgot I have a show, but like she's got Vegas and London, so she's kind of forgot and let it sort of hatch on its own. We're talking about season 4 right now.
Yeah,
It's
she's
fun,
letting
but
Gordon
it's real
Ramsay
different.
handle all the food stuff. So Gordon
Yeah,
has a
the
different
partner.
touch than the West Hollywood folks of 2012 for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, we're kind of wrapping up here soon, but I wanted to see if you had a couple more great Southern food cities to recommend. And then also, speaking of like the chefs coming up and developing things, I heard you also talking about getting to see Tom talk about his first James Beard House menu. And I think it was the week, I saw it the week he was making his first dish on Last Chance Kitchen. I was wondering also, what was your first dish you got on a menu? And like, do you remember how it came about?
As far as the food, it's your point. As far as the food cities go, come and visit me in Mobile. I think Mobile has a lot of Southern charm.
Will do.
It feels a lot like those great kind of coastal port cities of the South. And Mobile was the original French capital of the colonies. So in the 1703. Maybe even before that, it was the French capital of the colony. So we have a lot of relationship with New Orleans. The first Mardi Gras.
I was just about to say that's where the first Mardi Gras was in Mobile.
How was your Mardi Gras? Actually, right here at the top. So
it was real fun. I drank 42 beers in one day, so success.
But there are some other really cool hidden gems around Alabama. Like I've been familiar with Gulf Shores and Orange Beach. There are some cool places there.
Oh yeah,
those towns are really kind of small to be actual like big food cities. But at the same time, if you're looking for a really pristine kind of gorgeous beaches, the Alabama beaches are still kind of hidden away as compared to most of the rest of the like the Panhandle.
We've been to Orange Beach, Morgan Beach several times. We like it. We like it there too.
Yeah, I love that area, and it's just as close for us as it is, like some of the places you're talking about, and it is not have the high rises, so it's wonderful. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Before I don't want you to get out of here before asking you, is there anything that you want to plug or anything that we need to go see or do or listen or read or watch or eat, or tell me what's the what?
Yeah. Listen to the Top Chef podcast I'm on the Rob Has a Podcast Network. We're working. We're trying to get things going. It's a really great podcast, and I enjoy the folks we do it with. I'm easy to like on all the socials, actually, at least Instagram and Facebook. I'm at Chef Jim Smith, and the restaurant is at the Hummingbird Way on no longer Facebook, but definitely an Instagram for the restaurant. And if y'all are following my social media, like I have a series of big announcements that are going to be coming up over the next 6 months. I mean, it's not just like one announcement. There's like, a lot. There's a bunch going on. So I'll have several big announcements coming out really soon with a lot of cool stuff. And those are my plugs. That's what I got for today.
All right. Wonderful. It was so fun to talk to you. This is such a fun way. And I love to see Jeff get to talk to somebody who knows what the what is, because I often don't. I always have to like, Sundi has a question. What's a banga sauce? Sundi has a question. What's a calamay? So it's so fun to watch him get to talk to somebody.
Luckily, I always know the answer.
Yeah.
No, I don't
he loves it when I ask him questions he doesn't know the answer to. He loves that bit that I do.
Yeah. Well, Jim, I really appreciate it, man. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. I've enjoyed listening to you cover this season as well. I do want to come see you down there.